Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming. We got something for you here today. If you have student loan debt and you have a heart to serve your community, wouldn't it be great to erase that whole debt and be able to offer a low cost or no cost service to your community at the same time? It almost sounds too good to be true, but for real, this is real. So I have here with us today, Dr. Johannsen. We met in Puerto Rico last year for a conference. And it was amazing. We just kind of met by serendipity during a bathroom break. And I was blown away by the stuff that Dr. J was telling me. I had never heard it from anybody else before. And I was like, man, people need to know about this. So we're going to get into it. I'm really excited to have Jay with us here today to share, invaluable information. As you may know, my name is Bill Hershey. I'm a cash flow coach and offering bookkeeping services for integrative health professionals to help them make a great living, doing what they love, and making amazing impacts in their communities. So Dr. J, I'm going to let you take it away here and just shout from the rooftops, what is available to folks if they have student loan debt, and specifically integrative health or health professionals. Is that right?
Yeah, it's health professionals, and the modeling that we have actually expands it to people who may not be health professionals. Our modeling is very simple. I'm going to give you this analogy so that you understand when we begin that it's like looking at one of those pictures that you would see at the mall, at the art store, that was geometric and you'd have to stare at the thing forever. And then, oh, wow, it's a sailboat. Okay. Now, many of us stood there for hours on end, never seeing it. Some of us got it right away. So if you don't see how this works at first, remember, we can walk you through and help you and outline it for you. But the program that we're utilizing has been around, amazingly enough, for 16 years. It's been around since 2007, and it's called the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program. It was created in 2007 to deliver an offset to people in public service who would take jobs, let's say firefighting, teaching, police officers, people who work for the VA, public service sector workers who might not make as much doing that if compared to working in the private sector. So what basically occurred was they set it up so that if you work for a nonprofit 501c3 company or a governmental organization for 10 years while making income-driven student loan repayments, your direct subsidized, direct unsubsidized loans, and Grad Plus, but not family Grad Plus, just Grad Plus loans, can be forgiven under this program tax-free, unlike any other system. So the other options that are out there for healthcare practitioners existing are the 20 and 25-year programs. There has been talk that they may reduce those to 10. The fact of the matter is they will not. The legalities of which, just as we're seeing with Biden's forgiveness of up to $20,000, they're being challenged in the courts. And there were 3 other non-court challengeable ways for the administration to give that forgiveness currently that I could find, which means they know they exist. It was kind of put out there for us as a voting thing. Hey, vote for us. We're going to do this. Oh, wait, no, we're getting challenged. These are the bad guys. So it's kind of that, the splitting of America, which seems to be going on very well everywhere. And they just want to, pit everybody against everyone else. And realistically, I wish people would understand that, we're all just human. We all want to be loved. We all want to be cared for. We all want to have significance in our lives. And we all want to just basically do something that, rewards us extrinsically and intrinsically. And so with that, we took the PSLF, and I had been watching it for some time. And
PSLF, could you define that for us again?
Public Service Loan Forgiveness. You can Google PSLF, and you can Google PSLF FAQ, and you can get on studentaid.gov, and they've got frequently asked questions about it. You have to be a full-time employee, and our organization employs people, right, to basically be full-time employees with us. And our mission, okay, our mission is not the job. So we have to make a dichotomy, which I don't like duality, but there's the job and the mission. The mission is to provide and get people healthcare services who could not otherwise afford them. When we look at this, how we do this is in like an Airbnb or VRBO system. Rather than having to buy the clinic, those things exist out there. We just basically get a hold of those situations or those places or existing practitioners, and we have them deliver the care. And then as the VRBO or Airbnb organizers, our people are the ones who search those people out, raise some funds, and then record care. So imagine, the way that this entity creates value is by going out and saying, hey, Janet, Bill, Bob, you're a care provider. You could be a CNA. You could be a licensed nurse practitioner, mental health, dentist, chiropractor, PT, MD. If you can provide value in the healthcare field, we want you to provide some care to people, about $500 a month. Okay. And in return for that, basically, you do that in a lecture. That's our care provision. We recruit people to do it. Now, most people in the organization, they are also care providers. So they're just recruiting themselves or a spouse. So we hire them to go and recruit this person right here. We'll call it Mr. Penn and Mr. Mouse, right? Two different jobs. The Penn, basically care provision. They're not an employee directly. They're the people who are just out there doing a good thing for society. It could be the very same person, right? Most times it is. And with that system, we can reduce the overall fees because we don't have to buy a clinic. We don't have to run overhead. We don't have a brick and mortar. You guys are already doing it. So for our average participant who is a direct employee of us to recruit and to raise funds, they also act on the other side, delivering the care, the counseling. And so most people can get it done within the care counseling portion of it on their own side within an hour, hour and a half a month or so for most practitioners. They do have to give a lecture that's forward thinking, preventative healthcare. So in mental health, that could be things like, okay, let's start addressing coping mechanisms so that when things do happen, you already have a scaffold in place so that when that hits you, Jay, you don't get mad, you get happy because you have abundance. And well, yeah, this thing is broke, but at least you have this thing. This is what I go through. And I learn a coping mechanism. If it's in chiropractic, okay, let's not wait for the cavity to get so deep that I get back pain, right? Let's start doing some spinal rehab or some spinal conditioning or prophylactic exercises so that I don't have a spinal condition decay and wear. In dentistry, we all know this one. Brush and floss the ones you want to keep. So by the lecture, we engage the public to be preventative in nature. We do deliver a small amount of dollar value care for free to people. The clinicians get to decide whether or not that person has need. The rain falls equally on the fortunate and unfortunate. So somebody may have, a good job and a nice house and a car and all those things that people would say, wow, they don't have need, but they could have 2 kids in college, their dog got sick, their water heater broke and their transmission blew out, and now they're cash starved and they have no money to take care of themselves because they're still trying to, just keep the other things running. So we really get the ability to help people who may not have traditional access to reduced fee care even. I took a patient in who runs the largest roofing company in our area. And I know it is because he's got a fleet of Ford F-350s and their crews are busy. And I said, you have a $500 deductible and your co-pays will be about $100. And he's like, I can't do it. And I'm like, what's going on? He's like, well, he had fallen off a ladder. He said, can't get labor in. We've got shortage of materials. I'm living on a loan from the SBA. He's like, literally, I haven't taken a paycheck in 3 months. And, the kids are in school and this and that. And he just got hit by the perfect storm. Now I know that he employs probably 25 families in our local area, and those families depend upon him getting up that ladder, getting that bid, and then providing, the jobs that keep people moving. So I'm like, hey, we can help you out. We'll carry you. My only ask is this: we pay it forward. And you just have to bring 3 people to our health-based lecture. You get 3 people there and we'll take care of this. No worries. You're back to work, your families and the crews that you support, and keep working and working. So it doesn't have to be somebody who's totally, indigent or homeless or anything like that. Although people, a lot of people in our organization do go to like local kitchens, to shelters, to, missions and things like that. A lot of the care that we have comes in the form of people who have high deductibles, and we know those are there today. We do ask that, with all due respect, if they are doing insurance-based care, that they follow the guidelines of their insurance contract or whatever services that they're dealing with. And that's something that we don't operate in the realm of coaching them on. Hey, your Medicare, you have to collect a copay. That's something that's why they provide the care under their own license and liability. But doing the system, really, all they do is 1 lecture a month, $500 worth of care. They have to raise $320 per month at this point, and that covers the overhead for all of the operations. And they raise money that basically pays them back. So the average person basically puts in approximately about $1,000 worth of value time. And because they're practitioners, unlike the 17-year-old Jay that I was, the best value I could produce was, working at Taco Bell's drive-through in Fort Myers, Florida for, I don't know, $4.25 an hour. Since they're skilled, educated labor and professionals, the time respect basically is what they're leveraging. By doing that, they get equal exchange. They get their student loans forgiven at 10 years tax-free.
Wow, amazing. So I just want to make sure everybody's able to track and follow here. So what we're laying out here is you have a nonprofit organization that can partner with local clinics. The nonprofit organization is called Community Health Resources, right? And so that,
one word, healthcare.
Healthcare resources. Thank you. Okay. So you partner with these clinics and basically allow them to open. Is it right that we're calling that a subchapter? If someone partners with you, they have a subchapter of your nonprofit organization that they're able to offer these services to get eligibility for the loan forgiveness?
Kind of like that. Let me do this. I like to use manipulatives.
Love it.
So what we look at is there's 2 parts to this equation. They become direct employees of us, right? So they're direct employees of us on one side of the page.
In addition to being their own practitioner.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's say that, there's Dr. Bill, and Dr. Bill takes care of people, and he's got student loans like everybody else, and he's working a private clinic that's not, a big hospital that has millions and billions of dollars. So he runs and works for his for-profit clinic while he's working for us. Those 2 never really overlap or connect. The care that you give is under your own license in your own way. Do that. You raise funds for us, $320 a month, plus minimum wage for yourself. We pay that back to you. By doing that, the value of the care provided and the small dollars that you raise give you an equal exchange debt reduction. The average person coming out of school right now will have approximately $247,000 forgiven at 10 years. Now, I know that's going to chap some people's hides. You must realize that they're going to give $270,000 worth of value to the public. So this is not a get out of jail free card. So if you're a fiscal conservative, or whether you're a social liberal like me, a Robin Hood person like, man, give it back to the people, stop paying these student loan companies, give it back to the people who need it, and help yourself grow at the same time. It really is something that, because they're practitioners, the time value for what they have, unlike me at 17, they can produce a lot of value dollar numerically per hour compared to me at 17, right? So it's a leverage. So you run your for-profit clinic and you provide care under that, and you recruit yourself or somebody in your practice to deliver that care, and you raise a little bit of money. After 10 years, they take your student loans, what's left, and they give you forgiveness tax-free because you repaid your debts to society and to the people who paid the taxes that paid for your tuition. And that's how we got our IRS approval for nonprofit status. So you can do this and you can do your practice at the same time. It marries them together.
You know, what's wonderful about this is I think a lot of folks who are watching this are, integrated health professionals are notorious for being generous and impact driven. And now all of a sudden, you're probably doing a lot of pro bono work already. Now there's a mechanism to leverage that pro bono work that you're likely doing already to also alleviate yourself from the debt burden if you carry that. And I'm curious, Dr. J, do you have, maybe you could talk about some examples of doctors or practices who are doing this successfully, of course, anonymously, but maybe just to paint the picture a little bit more.
Okay, so the people that came over initially for us, and we started up in the midst of COVID, it was primarily people who no longer wanted to work in the hospital systems, who had a fundamental, and and I have to really give this to a lot of people, myself as a practitioner included. They had more knowledge than we had as general practitioners that the vaccination was rushed. And they said, we don't want to do that. And they left their employment and they were on track for student loan forgiveness by working at those hospitals that mandated, required, or forced vaccinations. So a lot of those people came over initially so that they could continue their nonprofit eligibility for public service loan forgiveness. And it's one that now after the fact, we've learned a lot more, we see that it's not actually the tipping point or value system for that isn't what it was, which hindsight's 2020. Now, the people who are coming in these times in the last 6 months to a year have been primarily physical therapists. And that would be clinic owners who are looking for sustainability of employment for their employees, better benefits, without having to sell to major hospital organizations. The physical therapy and mental health, like counseling especially, side of things are losing practitioners left and right to lower paying jobs at hospitals and large nonprofit organizations that, in my opinion, may or may not be nonprofit. I know one local one is a nonprofit, and they take most of the PTs and counselors, and they're on 65% of all bankruptcies in our county. Their bills are. So basically these mid to growing, rehab centers are using this as a way to help the practitioners stay in an autonomous practice unit, that is people or places where they can do what they want and the way they know is best for their patient, versus a hospital or a standardized system that tells you this is the protocol for everybody regardless. No, you can't change it. No, there's no autonomy. You follow this or you get out. It allows them to retain employees, which then keeps their operating expenses and turnover lower. And it helps basically get people the ability then to fulfill an intrinsic need to serve. Because while the practitioner is doing their general for-profit business, they'll have people come in and they know that person, if they don't get care, they're not going to rehab. They're not going to keep their job potentially. They may lose the ability to work. That would affect their families and economy negatively, and the local economy negatively. And it increases the burden on the safety networks that we have, which are already taxed enough. So really for me, I like the intrinsic side of it because, well, money doesn't mean that as much anymore now that I'm older and I've earned some. But the intrinsic thing, I think, is really the sustainable model for it. So, yeah.
Yeah, amazing. So what I'm curious about is, here we have, in order to get this 10 years down the road, your full debt load forgiven, there's like this minimal threshold of contributing, service hours and a community lecture per month. What if one really wants to structure a whole business model more in this direction of really being impact driven and, providing these low cost or no cost services to the community even more? How can folks do that in a way that allows them to still get compensated decently well?
So that's a good question. And we've got a couple practitioners who are those, what we call loving hustlers. They love and they have hustle. So when you're in an organization such as this, you have the capacity to write grants, to take in tax deductible donations, and those can go to actually help further the actual process of delivering care. So it can offset that. They can still run a for-profit business where the care is delivered. And then our clinic, as long as we see people, delivering care for free, we can dole out funding for care delivery. We can say, hey, yeah, you're delivering care. You're doing a good job in this area. Is it economically underserved? Is it, rural? What's the criteria that we need? And for us, really, we send out funding from our organization to fund clinics in areas that people would otherwise not practice due to economics and location, whether it's, rural Appalachia or a healthcare desert like the south side of Chicago, whether it's the Pine Flat Indian Reservation in South Dakota. Those areas need care, and the people who can least afford to suffer from health ailments, mental or physical, need that care. So that's where we send it to. So if somebody wanted to, and they wanted to get in and write some grants and things, we work with JITASA, and JITASA is the largest nonprofit accounting system in the world. And they basically, for a small percentage of the grant funding, will oversee the compliance and the reporting for those. So we've got we get hundreds of thousands of dollars come in, and they produce hundreds of thousands of dollars of care, and the people don't have to pay for it. It's something that's funded by nonprofit means.
Amazing. Yeah. And so, I think just having a nonprofit finance background myself, working for a nonprofit for more than a decade, and seeing out there that it's not that easy to run a nonprofit. There's a lot of administrative burden to do that. And so what you're basically offering is a way for a clinic to have sort of a nonprofit branch through community healthcare resources as a partner to potentially pull in grant funding and have all that administrative aspect of the nonprofit taken care of. And now, so would they be working in any way to obtain those grants, or is that 100% done by community healthcare resources to source out that grant funding if and when requested or needed?
Okay, so sourcing a grant funding, since we are a small organization and we run literally on a shoestring budget, because I do not know anyone who could run a nonprofit for, I don't know, $320 a month. That's what each individual employee has to raise to help carry the weight. Individuals have to write the grant proposals. They have to get those approved and they have to get them in. What we do so that it does not become a situation where those people who are hustling, man, I got to split it with everybody, everything. Each individual employee participating gets their own separate bank account, which those funds are put into. So let's say that I went out and I wrote a grant, which I just did, and $2,500 came in from the Victor and Doris Day Foundation. Well, that comes in, it goes into an account, and then it goes into my account. That goes to pay me my minimum wage, right? Therefore, I have less work to do on the, fundraising side that way. Or number two, basically I can increase to a fair and reasonable wage for the services that I record and produce. And the modeling very simply is, once you put it in there, you've got about 2 years or whatever the grant says to utilize those funds. If it does not get utilized, those funds do have to revert back to the main company, which then we distribute them immediately. Some grants have limitations on them, like, oh, you have a year to spend this money on X. So if people are doing it, but they may not have the capacity to give that care or do the work, again, we'll find people who can.
Okay, so that money comes in, and it's basically to pay the clinic owner who's running the nonprofit partnership program. It pays them to earn a minimum wage doing the community healthcare.
Yeah, it goes out as pay first. And then if you eclipse that minimum wage, then basically we look at, what are you guys producing? Are you producing more than $500 of care? Yeah. Let's say that, like my clinic, we produce sometimes over $10,000 a month in free care that goes out, sometimes upwards of 20. If we're doing that, I could say, hey, I really want to continue to do this work. We're giving free care. We're documenting free care. And here's my application. I'm asking community healthcare resources, would you fund us giving away care for free to people in need? Then the nonprofit level can go, Yeah, we can make a donation for that. We can do that.
Way cool. Way
Our
cool.
thing is to get care out there. Right now, the liquid assets that we have coming in as an organization at the national administrative level, it's very shoestring. We have no paid employees at this point in time. Everybody's a volunteer. The volunteers are people who have student loans, who are serving a nonprofit, and their pay comes 10 years down the line. So there is a reward. I don't want people, just being, I don't like the word used, but not rewarded,
Mhm.
that everybody
Yeah.
has to keep themselves from being utilized without reward. We just have to be cognizant and say, hey, here's my value. Oh, and here's the tax. So here's
Right.
what it's worth.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is just amazing. I wish we had more time to go into this. I would love to hear, and for our audience to hear, really some of the deeper origin story of how this came about. What led you to discover this, and what led you to,
It's a character flaw.
okay, interesting.
Yeah, interesting enough. I'll just be honest about it. I'm a Midwestern guy, and when you walk down the street here in the Midwest, people will go, "How's it going?" "Oh, not too bad." "Well, it could be worse." We have a tendency of complaining about things, "Oh, hey, Dave," I take care of farmers in the Midwest. They grow corn, beans. Hey, I saw it rained. Yeah, might as well not have. Wind came up and dried it out. Hey, Dave, it looked like it rained, but it wind didn't kick up and dry it out. Nope, got too much. It's going to rot the roots. So I was sitting in my clinic and I was taking care of a patient who's works at the local hospital. And she told me I got my student loans forgiven. And I said, "How does that work?" She's like, "Oh, you have to look into it. If you're in healthcare, blah, blah, blah. And here's what it is. And I work for this, and they're a nonprofit." And now I happen to take care of the most successful bankruptcy attorney in our area. And I asked him, I said, this company's a nonprofit. What in the world?" He goes, "Oh, no, they're not nonprofit. They're on 65% of all bankruptcies." So I was complaining about that. And we have an intern program where
What does that mean? They're on 65% of all bankruptcies.
the top line debt person, I'm claiming bankruptcy, and the top debt person that I owe money to, 65% of them are this hospital in our county.
Okay, so it's like everybody's an indentured servant, basically, of this hospital kind of thing. Is that what's going on?
Which claims nonprofit status, which I think is, I think that you can.
So basically, this hospital, and I don't mean to speak bad, but it's almost like they're kind of putting everybody into bankruptcy. Is that kind of what's happening?
Well, not everybody, but some people, obviously.
65%? Is that what's? Yeah.
65% of the bankruptcies in our county, are two nonprofit hospitals, are within the top two lines of that.
Okay, got it.
So there's
Okay.
medical debt, as we know, represents 67% of all bankruptcy cases in the United States for the last 20 years. So if we can get people, and this is why I was complaining, I'm like, okay, this doesn't seem fair. That's not a nonprofit hospital. When I was a student, I was having stomach issues as a student at chiropractic school. I was having stomach issues. I went in for, the pop rocks and chalk, and that didn't work. So they said, we need to do an endoscopy. Well, they didn't verify my benefits. And I was out of network with this organization, and they sent me a bill for $7,500. As a student, I was broke. It took me a decade to pay that off. I wasn't happy about it. So I'll just give you this. If I'm not sounding very friendly towards that organization, I have a personal reason. So I don't want to make it sound like everybody who works there. I take care of a lot of their employees. They're super nice people. They're helpful people. Now, is the administration that way? Well, no, they're a corporation. And, although they're not beholden to stockholders, their campuses keep growing and growing and growing and growing and growing. And, there's nothing I can say about that. But I was complaining, and a student who was very straightforward said, "Well, doesn't seem as though complaining's doing much good about it. Why don't you do something about it then?" And I thought, why don't I do something about it? So I started reading in beginning of 2019, late 2018, somewhere around there, reading as much as I could digest about the program, learning the ins and the outs. I read 700 and some pages, 85 maybe, of the actual law line by line. I went through it. And, for me, I had to put that on the auto reader on my Mac and stuff to have it read it to me while I was doing things because I'm an audio learner. And I got the realization that this system was not created to serve public service, public servants like teachers who have, what do they have, $40,000, $50,000 in debt. This program really doesn't work for people. There's a tipping point, and it's an inverse ratio between the income that they earn and the debt load that they hold. So that tipping point, like if you earn $100,000 and you owe $60,000, by 10 years, your debt's going to be paid off. There's no economic benefit outside of the intrinsic value for you, or if you're trying to run an altruistic, more nonprofit structure. So there's still benefit.
I mean, there's no economic benefit because you're not really earning enough to like really make it economically worth it to be paying off that loan and also making a decent living. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yeah. The more money someone makes, the more their student loan payment goes up. So if you make $100,000 and you have $280,000 of debt, you're going to pay $800 a month. That's not going to service the debt. They're going to capitalize the interest, and your debt load is going to grow over time. If you make $150,000 in income and you have $100,000 of student debt, you're going to have a payment that's going to be $1,200. And your student debt, you're going to be paying that down. So after 10 years, the leftover balance that they may forgive will be very low. So the economics of the system state that this was not created for people who have low incomes and low student debt, public servants, teachers, firefighters. What's it cost to go to firefighting school? Well, it's usually subsidized by the cities and the municipalities. It was created by large hospital companies to entice employees to stay. And well, let's turn that on its ear and let's make something good out of something that was, in my opinion, probably not created with the best of intentions. Let's take this and let's turn it into a Robin Hood project that basically takes, the tax dollar that's converted into student loan payments, and let's give that back to the investors. Because right now what happens is that once you graduate, your student loan is sold to a third-party private equity firm. They collect all the interest off of it. It does not go back into the American public's pocketbooks. It doesn't go back that way. It never serves or gives a benefit or a return to you and I as the taxpayer. This system does. Mm-hmm. So once I looked at it, I looked at the laws, the rules, the regulations. I looked at how can we get it going. So I took money from my 401k and the money I had saved and some equity, and I basically paid the attorneys and the accountants and the people to go through and build the system. Now that the system is running, we have evidence through the PSLF application, which is an application. Once you have one payroll go through and the taxes are paid on that, you can file a piece of paperwork that'll show you how many months do I personally have moving towards my 10 years of service. So that way you're not getting 10 years down the line and going, well, there was a mistake at year 2. Mm-hmm. You in real time gauge that. So one, we know that we're, bona fide by the IRS. We have our approval letter. 2, we've passed the public test. They've scrutinized us and audited it. And 3, we know that it works for the participants to get student loan forgiveness. And 4, we're able to take grants in, administrate them, and make sure that we still keep compliancy so we're still eligible for the future. And that's really something that takes, on average, usually 2 to 4 years. And we started in 2020. It's now 2023. So we're at that, 3-year mark or coming up on it. So yeah.
Wow. Amazing. So if somebody hasn't gone to school yet and they're applying for, maybe they want to become a nurse practitioner and start their own practice because, gosh, you can maybe bring in like 240K of revenue if you start your own nurse practitioner practice. That could very quickly pay some things off, but you don't have the capital to, go and pay for, getting your NP degree. What do you suggest for folks to be able to utilize this debt forgiveness strategy before they even get their postgraduate education?
Yeah, that's a good one. We already have people in some of the colleges, PT and chiropractic, that are students who participate. And the way that we look at it is dollars and cents. Again, numbers don't lie. Or as my accountant said, Jay, figures don't lie, but liars will figure. Let's do the math. And I said, okay, Dave, let's go. And what he came down with was that if you can get your loans while you're going through school, right? You consolidate them, which is atypical. No one suggests you do that in any other realm. You consolidate the loan. You go on an income-based contingent payment plan, which, since you're a student, you're not making any money anyway. Your payment will be near zero. At the same time, you raise enough funding to cover you do fundraising activities to cover your service and employment requirements with us, which a majority of that is paid to you guys as pay for doing the job.
During school,
And by the time you come out,
during school. Okay.
by the time you come out, you've got 2 to 3 years of public service loan forgiveness registration already. We find jobs for people in the colleges. If people are in school and they're coming out, we hire them. We're like, hey, you're a recruiter. Do you have somebody, first of all, and you must meet this requirement. Do you have somebody you can recruit to deliver care as part of your employment? And you must record it. So we've got one guy, and he's at Palmer here. I give the $500 of care away, and I give the lecture on his behalf. I do that because I have budgets. We have another student down in Dallas, Texas. He gets his dentist to give away a little bit of care each month, his therapist to give away a session, right? And he also gets a acupuncturist to give away therapy. So between 3 people, they all, on average, get around about, I think he's actually developing around $700 worth of care with those 3 practitioners. He delivers a health lecture, which I got to give it to him. He published this, and we've been using it more ourselves. Local church bulletin boards, public service announcements on NPR, and he just does it virtual, right? Here you go, gang. He put together a really good lecture on osteopenia and osteoporosis that we disseminate to anybody who wants it. So those are the type of things that people could be doing while in school.
Amazing. And what I love hearing is the students are so busy sometimes, they don't have to be the one actually doing the work. They just have to get somebody who's motivated and cares to do it on their behalf, basically. Is that right?
Yeah. And Bill, there, in chiropractic, physical therapy, mental health, counseling, things like that, there are so many people who are already doing enough. I cannot understand or fathom, that somebody comes in to see me and they ask you a question that's not related to their current health condition or presentation. Let's say that they're in there and they're like, hey, I'm talking with my counselor and I'm having anxiety or depression. Should I be taking St. John's wort? That's outside of the scope of that thing. If they ask me, should I be doing X exercise, or should I take this supplement, or should I be eating a keto diet? I'll sit and counsel with them and give them information, which really, I do that out of the goodness of my heart and the fact that they need it. But do I charge for it? No, and a lot of people get hung up on the service hours. I want to make sure everybody understands service hours happen while you're working your regular job. So when somebody comes in, to the Goodwill and they're dropping something off on a sunny, bright day in the spring, that guy is going to be busy. On a cold winter, rainy day, they might see 2 people, but they're still getting paid to be there and on call for that service. And that's how we look at things. There is no punching the clock. It's the time that it took you to develop the skill. So students can participate. We even have a spouse who's a non-practitioner. She basically has a husband who is a physical therapist, and she recruited him to give the lecture and the care. That's her job, recruit somebody. It doesn't have to be her. And she does the rest. She does the fundraising portion, which, remember, if you raise $1,100 one month, that is about equal to minimum wage for the state of Iowa. All that gets paid back to our employees. Right. The money goes back to the employees. We don't keep things at the national level. I want the world to be a better place when I'm gone. And that's why, I'm really looking at how to structure this so that it perpetuates after. And that's why we're swirling away a little bit so that it starts to have a fund to produce enough to pay somebody when I'm, sayonara, to actually come in. And that endowment basically produces value,
Right.
from stock or from bond or from accrual interest that pays the people who propagate and bring this forward.
Right. That makes total
Yeah.
sense. I mean, things cost money for a reason. And
Yeah.
so, and
Not
yeah,
everybody.
it's got to be sustainable for everybody who's steering the ship. So I'm curious, there's this fundraising aspect that, basically someone who's got a subchapter of community healthcare resources, they're running it to mitigate their own student debt, and they're raising $320 a month. It sounds like they can do that by promoting maybe the couple ways of doing that. I'm curious to hear other ways. One way might be to give a public lecture and maybe say, hey, by the way, this is a pay what you can lecture. And, you're welcome to
Donation.
enjoy this for free. If you'd like to donate to allow us to continue to offering these, it goes to this nonprofit, organization. Or if you're offering the services, you might say, hey, this is a pay what you can service. It's like, I realized it might be $1, it may be $3, but
Yeah.
over the course of maybe helping 10 people, that's kind of a lot. Maybe if all you have to do is, a couple hours, but I mean, you might raise $300 right there through 10 people, right?
We encourage and we train people and give resources and materials to do very simply this. My associate doctor, basically in our office, all we did was I trained my front desk staff by drilling, and I just went through and I would say, like, let's say that you got adjusted by Dr. June. Hey, Bill, do you like what Dr. June does for you? Yeah. Okay. Would you mind rounding your copay up to the nearest dollar to help a family that can't afford care? It goes to a nonprofit that we use to deliver care to people who can't afford it. It's just a change. Would you throw the change in to help somebody? Okay.
There it is.
Our fee schedule is our adjustments $45.05. We just raised $1. Ask somebody 3 times and they'll go, you know what, Bill, you don't have to ask. Dr. June does a great job. I don't mind. Just automatically add it on. There's one way. Well, you can raise a couple $100 doing that easy. And we're seeing, and I poll people in our organization, we're seeing about 70% to 75% of patients will do that if the clinic is diligently trying. So the other thing that we do is in our organization, when we have a lecture, let's say that is, and I really like that osteoporosis lecture because it's usable by so many different practices, whether chiropractic, physical. They just go through and they say, hey, Q&A, does anybody have questions? No? Okay, what did we learn today? Well, recap is you've got to get dietary considerations, calcium in the form of XYZ, vitamin K, vitamin D3. And if you don't have physical activity, just like any system, muscle, you use it or lose it. Bone is that way. How many people here have a knee, an ankle, of back problem that stops you from exercising and getting that pounding exercise that stimulates bone deposition? Okay, if you have that, very simply, if you donate X dollars to Community Healthcare Resources, nonprofit, we will do your evaluation exam. Some limitations apply. For us, that's our Medicare and our Blue Cross contract. We can't give away services unless we document that they have need. And we have to follow the documentation guidelines, which are different from one company to the next to the next. So we generate new patients because not everybody is broke. Out of those, we might find 10 people come in, there's one in economic need. Now we have somebody to deliver that care to who really needs it. You don't have to fill your clinic with people who don't value what you do either. We've already done that. And I don't know about you guys, but how many people out here listening are really helpful people? You love people and you want to take care of them, but sometimes on the other hand, you feel taken advantage of. For us, we had to find a way to kind of mitigate that and keep it honest for everybody and good feeling. And that is when somebody gets services from our organization, I'll let them know, Dave, we'll take care of you. We've got you covered. We love you. We want you to get the care, but you must pay it forward. Is that fair? What's our requirement? We require that you bring in 4 people that you love, okay, to a workshop on health within the next 2 months while we're taking care of you. Okay. During that time, they'll spend an hour. There's no obligation. If they want or they like what we do, they can become part of our family. If they don't, at least they learn something that will help them stay healthy. So it's a pay it forward system.
Love
That,
it.
if people are unwilling or unhelpful, if they tell me, well, I don't know 4 people, you know 4 people. You just value what we do enough to go in and go, I'm really uncomfortable, but Bill, would you come on Tuesday to this lecture about, our immune system and learn more? You could get healthy, stay healthier. They just don't want to go out. They don't value it enough to go through a little bit of discomfort of asking.
Right. Yeah. So key. Yeah. And I mean, I think that's a nice criteria too, give some to get some. So yeah, Dr. J, thank you so much. This has been amazing. Would you like to maybe leave folks here with how to get in touch with community healthcare resources and maybe take a next step if they're interested in partnering with you to get their debt forgiven and serve their community?
Yeah, that's an easy one. If you want, you're more than welcome to give a call. Generally, we've got people answering the phones most of the time. Some days it's busier, but leave a message or text us, and you can do that at 563 447 0772. You can also email me directly at jj@chr501. That's Charlie Hector Roger 501.org. And I would be glad to help you. Our application system is fairly simple and straightforward. Getting into the organization and going through background checks and onboarding typically takes the average employee participant about 3 hours. And it's pretty simple. If you could invest 3 hours and get rid of some student debt and find a way to help people and fulfill your mission to be that helpful person, it's probably one of the least time requirements for the major benefit that you get. So it's a really good leverage.
So, well, thank you so much, Dr. J. I look forward to being in touch. And yeah, I hope you all got value from this. Definitely reach out to Dr. J if you have student debt and you'd like to, wipe that clean and serve a lot of people at the same time. Gosh, this is an amazing opportunity. Looking forward to telling people more about this, Dr. J. Thanks again. And
Bill, and it's good to talk to you again, man. I tell you, it is serendipitous the way it's always a good thing. The universe brings people together.
Yeah, totally. We're very, very fortunate to be able to have made this connection. Wonderful. All right. Well, have a great rest of the day, everybody. Thanks again. Take good care for now. Bye-bye.